Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, March 13th, 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are back again for another market open. I just realized just now, literally, that when I say it's 8:46 a.m., there's like hundreds of you across the world where it's not 8:46 a.m., but no one's ever told me to stop doing that. So I guess you guys now officially know what 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is for your part of the world. But no one's ever said, hey, Amit, it's not 8:46 a.m. here, but it's 8:46 a.m. here. And that's why we are getting live, ready to go on the market open. This is going to be a pretty heavy news-packed day with a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot of headlines, a lot of stuff to talk about. So number one, Tesla. Downgrade by Wells Fargo to $125. Stock is down 2% in the pre-markets. That downgrade really got the street scared. I have some thoughts on that. We're going to look at what Wells Fargo had to say, why they got downgraded, what Dan Ives had to say about this, and why a lot of people around Tesla are freaking out a little bit in the pre-markets. Number two, Peter Thiel, Palantir co-founder, chair of the board, sold 7 million shares, $178 million worth of Palantir yesterday. And so we're going to talk about that. Does it matter? Is it a big deal? Does he not care about the company anymore? We'll discuss that. And then on top of that, you've got Michael Saylor making more headlines in regards to his comments on Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now, $73,000 a coin. Ibit to BlackRock just bought in $849 million yesterday, above 70,000 they bought their Bitcoin. So we got a lot to talk about in terms of those inflows, what's going on, and everything in the world of Bitcoin. Folks, it's Wednesday. We're alive once again on planet freaking Earth. Already, that should be a reason to be happy today. And it's time to do the market open. Let's get into it. Nick, Top Dasher, Black Circle, Shem Pasta, Torben, Valerio, Tankstead, Sachin, what's up? Jordan says his Palantir goodbye right now. I am DCAing. I DCA'd yesterday. So in my opinion, yes, but you got to be ready to DCA. Peter Girardi, Keg, Adam, Tabor, Bay Ray, Socom Parade, Johnny Boy, Juan Carlos, Matt, Richard, Eeyore was right, Daniel, Nolan, Thomas. It's Wednesday, my dudes. It is Wednesday, otherwise known as a hump day. You know what I'm talking about? Songrong, Otto, Alex, Cause Why Not, Cows. Thank you all for being here today. Dan Stokes, what's up? All right, let's get into it. So, bunch of stuff to talk about. And we got to get through a ton of things right now. NVIDIA, by the way, is dropping a bit in the pre-markets. It's at $910. The entire market, oh, wow. Wow, the entire market just dropped. Wow, look at that. Entire market just went red. Look, let me show you guys real quick. Entire market just went red. It was actually pretty green in the pre-markets. It was pretty green. Look at this. Left-hand side of the screen. Everything just went red. And when NVIDIA was dropping, I was like, wait, why is NVIDIA dropping? Robinhood was at 1650. Now it's at 1637. S&P is down a little bit. Palantir was at 2489 when I tweeted my good morning picture. Now it's at 2455. Bitcoin holding on for dear life at 73,000. Did some news just come out? Why did the entire market, everything just went red? SoFi just dropped 0.53%. ARM is down 2%. Something just happened. We're going to have to figure out. SMCI down 2%, NVIDIA down 1%. Now, NVIDIA was nearing 930 in the pre-markets. Now NVIDIA is down to 910, which is still fine. But okay, so we'll see what happens. Celsius is not down. Yeah, so Celsius just got a price target upgrade to $105. They're at $94 right now, up 3%. They got a price target from Bank of America, I think. No. Oppenheimer. One of those firms upgraded Celsius to 105. And so Celsius, the little bit of green we're seeing in a sea of red. Okay, so a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's get into Tesla first to start it off. There is peak fear, or maybe not peak fear. Maybe the fear is just starting, even though it's hard to say, given that Tesla's down 30% year to date already before the news we got this morning. Tesla down 2.43%. It was at 177 in the pre-markets, now 173. Why are they down? Well, Wells Fargo decided that this company is not really worth $600 billion. Right now, the market cap around $450 billion. They said the company should be worth $125. That's their new price target. Now, their price target used to be $200. So this is an institutional note from an institutional analyst that came out to their investor base, their clientele base. They basically said, hey, do not buy Tesla. Do not buy Tesla. So let's read from this a little bit and see what their downside risk looks like. And then we'll get to Dan Ives' response and my thoughts on it. The analysts cut the price target by as much as 75 to 125 a share. So wow, that's actually a range, 75 to 125, which indicates a near 30% downside risk on a stock that's already down 30%, 28.5% year to date. Wells Fargo said Tesla ain't looking so magnificent. Wow. Those are fighting words, dude. The fact that he used ain't, if you're an institutional analyst, you're supposed to use isn't. You're supposed to be professional. The fact that he went unprofessional to say this in his note, that means he's looking for a fight, basically, and he doesn't care. That's what that indicates. We expect volumes to be flat in 2024 and down in 2025 in the wake of price cuts are lower lease residuals, disgruntled customers, and the possible loss of the luxury brand premium. Dude, that's a very serious thing for him to say. Now, if you take it seriously is another question, but for him to say Tesla might lose its luxury brand appeal, that's an interesting. I haven't heard someone say that in the past couple months. That's interesting. No one said they were going to lose their luxury brand appeal. Everyone's just stressed about margins. We see headwinds from disappointing deliveries and more price cuts, which likely drive negative EPS revisions. While an EV battery tech leader, Tesla screens poorly relative to Mag 7 peers, trading at 58x price earnings, and with peers at 31x. He's correct. Nvidia is at around like 35. Yet Tesla has a similar outlook for consensus 3-year EPS growth, 19% versus 23% versus the Mag 7 average. The analysts also discussed Tesla's next major launch was expected to be a next-generation compact SUV Model 2. This luxury vehicle model is expected to arrive in the second half of 2025. Model 2 economics are likely tough as mass-market compact vehicle, is what the analyst said. Okay. Technical Wonk says, did Chris write this? This was Chris. Chris now works at Wells Fargo. I didn't know that, Chris. I didn't know you got a new job there. Okay, so here are my thoughts. And look, I'm probably wrong on this. I'm probably definitely wrong. And I think Tesla's probably gonna be. I was talking to someone last night who has a lot of money in Tesla, like a lot of money in Tesla. And he's buying more, but he's doing it in a very disgruntled way because he knows this shit is just, it's probably not doing the best. These are my thoughts. I think the Tesla dip seems like peak fear. And the reason it seems like peak fear is because when the big boys are telling you to sell Tesla, it always tends to be for a reason. And the reason tends to be that they want to end up buying your Tesla shares. All of the arguments that we just looked at in the analyst note around Tesla, they all make sense. We've been talking about it on this show for the past couple months, especially after post Q4 earnings around margins, EPS, the PE that Tesla trades at relative to the other Mag 7. Like, we've been talking about all that. The problem is it's still Tesla at the end of the day. And Tesla is still going to be able to deliver a decent amount of vehicles. Tesla still is going to solve FSD faster than anybody else. And Tesla still is going to have what I would think is a pseudo monopoly forget pseudo. It's a monopoly on the charging space. And that is going to drive incremental margins and revenue growth. This is what Dan Ives had to say about it. He says, we believe the risk reward is extremely compelling at these levels with the AI story FSD making major strides at Tesla. So obviously FSD, right, the bulkus, and represents a valuation that could exceed $1 trillion as this next chapter of the growth story plays out. First quarter units will be sluggish, but 2.1 million deliveries still seems hittable for 2024, which is up from 1.8 that they did last year. So if they do 2.1, that would give them a 16% growth rate for Tesla year over year in terms of deliveries, which I think last year was like 25%. So it would slow down significantly, but they're still going to be above 2 million, which I think is very important for the street to be able to see how that happens. Chris says Tesla's a bad spot for now. I have no hate for them. I agree. Same thing, same perspective I have. And I think every Tesla bull, like if you're a Tesla bull, you kind of have the same feeling Palantir bulls had when Karp said they're not going to be profitable until 2025 in Q3 2022, and the stock was at $8. It's like, look, you do know it's undervalued. You do know like eventually that this thing's going to break out. But in the moment, you kind of are just like, we're in a bad spot right now. Like if our operating income margins are 17%, if we're not going to be profitable for 5 years or 3 more years is what the CEO said, like we're just in a bad spot. But things will be okay long term. Just for now, we're in a bad spot. Now Palantir ended up recovering relatively quickly. It took them 2 quarters and they got out of that funk. But Tesla right now, I think, is the exact same situation. There's no hate or malice, I think, for any Tesla bull or even bear, except Gordon Johnson. He's probably loving all this. But I think a lot of people are recognizing that they're in a tough spot. Q1 numbers are not going to be good. And when Nvidia puts up monster Q1 numbers and Tesla doesn't, the street's just going to be like, you know what? We can't keep giving this stock a premium. And it is what it is. That's fine. I think, and I've been saying 2024 to me is a DCA year for Tesla. If you don't have a Tesla position like myself, building out a Tesla position for, the next 10, 15 years, this is a golden opportunity. Maybe these prices are not the golden opportunity. Maybe 150 and below is. But I also feel there is a massive amount of demand for Tesla stock, whether from retail or institutional, probably from Wells Fargo, quite frankly, when this thing gets below 170. Or when this thing gets to 165-ish. I think that demand is there. So the idea that this goes to 125, I personally don't see that happening. Could it happen? Yes, because we obviously know their Q1 guidance. Well, they didn't give any guidance, but their Q1 numbers are not going to be the best. But I still think Tesla long term is the best shot if you want to invest in a generational EV company. And I think all of us know that. Cause Why Not says, I agree with the analyst, to be honest, even with the price target. Yeah, I think we all could see 125. It's not like we can't see that. I don't think it's not like we can't see 125. It's actually kind of reasonable when you look at the EPS numbers for it. But will Tesla? It's like Palantir. Could I see going it back to 19? Yeah, because you could argue that the valuation is a little stretched right now. But is it actually going back to 19? I don't think so. Same thing with Tesla. I really don't think we're going to 125, even though I could see that happens. Because I just think there's too much demand at the end of the day for Tesla. But we'll see how that ends up playing out. Regardless, that is the note on Tesla. In my opinion, this is going to be peak fear. I do think we drop a little bit more today. We fell 2% in the pre-markets. Last time this happened, the dip got eaten up very quickly and we rebounded to 181. Obviously, we came back down to 173. But we'll see. I think Tesla investors are in a precarious situation. It did break the downtrend from a technical perspective, so it does look like we are headed a little bit lower without this Wells Fargo guy making this argument. But that is the news currently right now on Tesla, and I guess we will see how the stock plays out later this morning. Okay, let's get into Palantir. Mark says, is Robinhood putting out any numbers today? Yes, they are. On the market close, make sure you're here. So I put out a long thread on Twitter yesterday. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. I'll put it in the chat so you guys can read it, but it's a pretty long one. And I basically outlined all of the numbers that I think they're going to report. And so that'll be out at 4:05 p.m. So on the market close, we'll actually get live access to that data. And I think these numbers are going to be pretty substantial. I mean, we already know some of the numbers. The big number to me is net cumulative funded accounts. If that gets close to 200,000, they did 120,000 last month. Q1 is going to be a pretty big number. And then obviously if crypto volumes exceed like 7 to 8 billion, that we know the revenue is coming and it's going to be pretty high. So we'll see those Robinhood numbers for February at 4:05 later today. Okay, cool. So that's the first thing we have. Let's do Palantir. Okay, so Palantir, we had some issues yesterday with Palantir, even though there's, it is what it is. It's one of those things you have to deal with. So let me get through it. I know people are immediately going to get scared when I introduce it, but then I'll break it down. Peter Thiel sold $178 million of Palantir yesterday, and he sold $178 million of Palantir, which equivocates. Wow. What a word, equivocates. That's a good one. Equivocate. Is that even a word? Did I make no, that's a real word. Equivocates. It equals 7 million shares, 7.044 million shares. I do not think this was scheduled. People are like, is this scheduled? Dude, 7 million shares is not scheduled. And I don't see the 105B S1 anywhere on the docs that I'm looking at. One of the things I'm realizing is that it is so hard to read these docs. It's really, it's not easy to do. So we need a better way to be able to figure out how to read these docs. There's all these different regulations and stuff where you don't know if it's scheduled or are they acquiring options or any of this stuff. But look, maybe some of it was scheduled. The whole point is he sold between 24.77 and 25.54, and he took 7 million shares off the table. Now, what are my thoughts on this? Quite frankly, I think this is a nothing burger. I don't think this matters. Peter Thiel has been holding Palantir since 2005 is when he first got his shares, 2006, something like that. They created the company in 2003. So he's been holding shares for a very long time. This is the second time he sold on the open market. The only other time was in 2021 when the company went public and they pumped right after that. And you can't blame them for selling at that point. The market was going crazy. They took liquidity. And then the only other time after that was his VC fund, which isn't even him. It's his investors that invested in Mithril Fund. They sold 2.4 million shares back in December at like $21. So he's only sold 3 times. One of the times was for his fund, so it's not like he makes that much money off of it. His LPs, limited partners, make money. And then Palantir's up 60% year to date. You're gonna take some profit. It is what it is. So the key thing to understanding about this is that if Peter Thiel was able to offload 7 million shares onto the market, Cause Why Not says these shares were held since 2006. Correct. They were held for a very long time. And the market relatively reacted. Like yesterday, we were at 25.60. Now I know why we went to 24.70. It's because Thiel dumped 7 million shares. But the fact that we're still doing relatively well and it's not collapsing the stock to like 22 or 23 or people are freaking out, to me, that signals there is so much liquidity for Palantir. There's so much investor demand for Palantir that the chairman, co-founder, can offload 7 million shares and people just eat it up. Like, yeah, it'll tank the stock a little bit. The stock will go down 3-4%, which is what we saw yesterday. But then it kind of recovered. There were people that bought up those shares and then bought even more shares. Even, last night we were touching 24.95. So to me, I actually think this is very bullish that he was able to sell that many shares and it didn't really tank the stock. Number two, you just can't blame someone who, by the way, he still owns 120 million shares of Palantir. This was 5% of his holdings. So the guy owns a lot of shares. And over time, I would expect him to sell more. Palantir went from a $20 billion company when they IPO'd to now close to 60 billion. Yeah, you're going to take some profits. And when they get to 90 billion, you're going to take some more profits. And 100, like, it is what it is, especially when you have that many shares. When people say, oh, should we be selling as retail if the insiders are selling? The difference between insiders and retail is that retail doesn't have as many shares as insiders. If you had 140 million shares of Palantir, you would sell some Palantir. Now, you may only have 5,000. So you don't want to sell those 5,000 shares. You want to hold on to those for a long time. If you had 140 million, it's a little different. So I think that's kind of the correlation there, or the dichotomy there. And I just don't see it as that big of a deal. Is he going to switch to Bitcoin? He might. Founders Fund bought $30 million or $200 million versus worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum in October for 30,000 a pop on Bitcoin. And I think like 1,800 for Ethereum. So maybe they switch to Bitcoin, but I think for him, he's just taking some liquidity. One quick more thing I want to say about Palantir, and then we'll move on to Bitcoin. So I was speaking with someone who works on Wall Street yesterday. I tweeted about this morning, and we just got on the phone. He got my info, and we were just talking about Palantir. This guy is a relatively older gentleman who's been investing for a very long time, and he is over the moon about Palantir. I mean, this is someone who manages decent amounts of capital for clients. Like we're talking about good money. And he can't find the reason to sell. He is enthralled with Alex Karp. He believes so heavily in the mission. And the biggest reason he told me that he's holding the stock for a very, very long time, and he's still buying right now. So he's buying at 7, buying at 15. He tried to tell his family to buy at 15. They didn't believe him. So now he's buying even more at 24. His biggest argument was FedStart. So his argument was the fact that they're able to basically take a little piece out of all these government startups that are defense tech startups that are trying to get into the government and own kind of like a sort of a proprietary method to be able to get them accredited and have them be confidential within the broader government ecosystem, because that's a very hard thing to do. And you need a company that knows how to do it, like Palantir, that's working with the government for 20 years. That to him was just like a game changer. And so he thinks government reacceleration is just beginning. He thinks 24 is cheap. This is his opinion. And he doesn't even trust his own firm's research, quite frankly. It was funny because he was like, I read your stuff. I watch, what you guys do on YouTube, because I can't trust what my firm is putting out, because my firm is fucking, they don't really know how to analyze it. They're just looking at PE basis and price to sales. They're not actually looking at hardcore research. So take it for what it's worth, but I do want to share that anecdotal experience. There are a lot of people that are very, very wealthy, high net worth individuals that are not selling a single share of Palantir. So seems like more and more people are understanding the vision and seeing where it will go. All right, let's go to Bitcoin. So first of all, I want to say two things. I didn't get to say if you weren't on the market close, you didn't hear about this. Yesterday, Tom Lee retweeted my tweet. I had a tweet which is a tweet about the Bitcoin miners. We'll talk about the Bitcoin miners in a second, but we talked about this in the morning. Joe Biden unveiled his 2025 budget proposal, and he said he wants to tax digital asset miners 30%. And so Tom Lee retweeted that, and he basically said, hey, if you're a single issue voter, this is a very, very, very big deal. So obviously Tom Lee is sort of understanding where the Bitcoin mining space is going. He's bullish on Bitcoin, but something like Biden trying to pass this would not be good for the miners. We'll talk more about the miners in a second. Today, Michael Saylor liked my tweet this morning, like literally 20 minutes ago. And the tweet he liked was this video of him speaking about Bitcoin. So let's take a look at this 2-minute video, and then we'll keep going from there.
Is there a price at which you would consider selling some of the Bitcoin, pulling out? So, I mean, because you can do something with New York City. You can live in New York City. You can have a business in New York City. What do you do with the Bitcoin besides it just gather value?
Well, the proper real estate developers in New York City, they're not buying the real estate because they want to live in it. They're buying the real estate because they expect
because
that
they
it's
want
going
to
become
sell it
more
eventually,
desirable.
Michael. I mean, let's be honest. Most of the people who are, yes, sure, some people pass it on to their children, but like most of the people who are buying assets at some point want to sell the assets at a profit. So
let me say it a different way.
Okay.
People that use fiat currency as a store of value, there's a name for them. We call them poor. Okay. Anybody that's rich in the world, they own property. They own large swathes of land. The royal family of England, it didn't sell all of its property in central London in order to buy, currency or paper money. Nor did the royal family of Japan. Nor did the royal family in the Middle East. In fact, they want to own the property forever. I want you to imagine Bitcoin is. It's a city in cyberspace that's 276 blocks wide, 276 blocks high, 276 blocks deep, about 21 million blocks. Now imagine all 8 billion people in the world want to live there one day. They want to put their capital there. There's $900 trillion of wealth in the world. As people migrate from every other form of property and they've assets into cyberspace, you're going to see the Bitcoin network go from $1 trillion network to a 10x that to 100x that. And there really is nowhere else to go. It is the apex property of the human race.
Okay, so a couple things there that were really, really important. And then here, let me just show you guys this. This was the Saylor like on the post. It was at 8:14. Is Alex Karp in the background of the iPad? Maybe, but that is the Michael Saylor like. So what he said here, and I got into a rabbit hole last night of watching more Michael Saylor, dude. I was like at 2 a.m. I was listening to this guy talk. Like, it's what's really interesting to me. The revelation I'm having on Bitcoin is that, and I said this last night on Finance Junkies, Bitcoin has a story. I am a storyteller. The reason I love Palantir so much, I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but one of the core reasons is there's a fucking story to tell. You know, every day with these news updates and the content and the Western values and the philosophy and the technology, there's such a big story to tell. And it makes me excited as a content creator and as a storyteller that wants to be someone who can hopefully provide value in telling that story. Bitcoin, you could argue, is one of the greatest stories that has ever been created and one of the greatest concepts that's ever been created. And the story around that concept is incredibly interesting. Why? In a nutshell, the internet created like tens of trillions of dollars of value. Right? The idea that we could all be globally connected. There's 950 people here right now on this one website, YouTube. Like, that was an incredible idea. That idea, that multi-trillion dollar network, for that multi-trillion dollar network to not have a native element of currency. I mean, think about all the value the internet has created, to not have some level of currency attached to that, to be using PayPal and dollars where all these middlemen are taking fees. It's quite ridiculous. And so as I've been reading more into it, I'm just like, well, Bitcoin is just digital currency for the internet. And because the internet is so effective, the fact that I can FaceTime someone over Wi-Fi and I can see them, which can create such an emotional reaction, right? So it's such a like a beautiful thing for humanity to know I can FaceTime someone all across the world. If Bitcoin could have incredible elements to it that allow you to send money across the world, to allow you to have digital currency across the world, just like you're able to digitally see someone's face, even though you're not physically with them, that's a hell of an idea. First and foremost. And then if that idea is actually peer-to-peer and there's scarcity to that idea and there's all these other components, it becomes an incredible idea. And what I think Michael Saylor is doing right now is he's getting people to understand the idea at hyperscale. And obviously the price going up and he puts his money where his mouth is, that makes the price, that makes the story more accentuated as well. Now, on what he said about people being poor, I think he said it in a way that feels offensive, but it's not offensive at all. All he's saying is that, hey, if you're selling something that's appreciating in value to then buy something that essentially will depreciate in value, almost like if you're selling your Tesla stock to buy a Tesla, when you know the potential of Tesla, it's an appreciating asset, versus you're buying a Tesla that you probably don't need to have unless you're super rich, right? And you can afford to do it. But if you don't need to do it, whereas the Tesla stock could magnify your gains, you are poor. You at least have a poor mentality, because you do not sell a winner for a loser. And as great as the Tesla car is, if you really, don't have the disposable income for it, selling something that's winning to buy something that's losing doesn't make a lot of sense. And so in that context, when she says, well, when do you sell the Bitcoin? His argument's like, well, why would I sell the Bitcoin if forget all these catalysts, but if Bitcoin is the highest returning asset, at least of the past decade, why would I sell that to buy real estate? Why, like, that maybe will get you 5% year over year. And then on top of that, the land could potentially get seized, right? You get into such a philosophical argument. So I think from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Eeyore was right, says he was saying people who hold cash are poor. Yeah, because the cash is getting eroded to inflation. And we know that's happening. And so if we know that happens, I think that's one of the reasons why he's ultimately saying, hey, that is a poor mentality, and that's a bad mentality to have. One quick more thing I want to say on Michael Saylor, and then I want to move on to Bitcoin miners and some of the ETF inflows we saw yesterday. I saw him make this point, and I don't know if anyone's heard this before. Bitcoin is one of the only monetary instruments on the planet that discourages violence. Why? Okay, if I access my Bitcoin through my mind, meaning I know my key to the Bitcoin wallet, and I don't have it written down anywhere, like you can't seize it, right? It's in my mind. If you kill me, you never get the Bitcoin. Like, think about how I think there's like 4 million Bitcoin or something that are lost forever in cyberspace. If you kill me, you can't have my wealth. Whereas, like, if I have, millions of dollars in the bank, you could kill me and potentially get the bank password. Or if I have millions of dollars of stock, you could like hack into my Schwab and you can take all my stock, right? And you can like kill me. And violence is the incentive to be able to take my property. If the property exists in my mind, there's no, like, the incentive is not to kill me. The incentive is I need to keep this guy alive. So he gives me the password so I can access his coins, which means you have to enter into a negotiating relationship with someone, even if you have a adversarial relationship with them, or if you were to do something violent. It's an incredibly interesting idea. You can obviously be tortured, yes, but if someone doesn't want to give up their Bitcoin, the torture may last. Eventually, the torture is going to kill the person, right? But there is a terminal end goal to getting that Bitcoin, and that finality is locked within someone's mind. And yes, you could torture them, and maybe they unveil it, but if they're not ready to unveil it, you never get access to the coins. So to me, that concept in and of itself was incredibly interesting. I know all you guys are saying torture. Like, yes, torture is the loophole. I get it. But the point is, philosophically, just think about that. There is an incentive, at least, to not kill somebody because they have access to a digital key that exists in cyberspace that no one else has access to. It's not written down anywhere. Like, you can't find it. And it's one of those things that, as an idea, even if not perfect, it incentivizes something that I don't think we've ever had incentivized throughout human history when it comes to money. So I'm starting to understand the idea of Bitcoin a lot more, and the philosophy around it, and it's intriguing. I'm philosophically intrigued by Bitcoin, and the entire concept around it. And obviously, Michael Saylor getting a lot more people to understand that concept by saying, "Hey, you don't have a poor mentality to sell a winner just to get into a loser." Now the Bitcoin ETFs. Let's talk about that. There was a very, very, very big day for the Bitcoin ETFs. BlackRock bought in. You guys are funny. You guys are like, there's a lot of ways that they would make you give up your Bitcoin. BlackRock bought $850 million of Bitcoin above 70,000. So they bought basically 11,496 Bitcoin. That's a lot of Bitcoin, dude. That was yesterday. ARK-B, Kathy's fund, brought in 93 million of inflows, and Fidelity brought in 51.6 million. Grayscale, interestingly enough, only at 79 million of outflows after averaging 400 million of outflows every day for the past 2 weeks. So Grayscale's not having, I mean, we'll see. This is a one-day thing. We'll see if the trend continues. But Grayscale seems to be slowing down in terms of their trend of outflows, whereas obviously BlackRock is killing it, dude. 840 million in a day. That's a lot of Bitcoin, dude. That's a lot of Bitcoin coming up. And it seems like the market's continuing to pour into these ETFs. Over $1 billion in net inflows to the Bitcoin ETF happened yesterday. So 1.046 billion. I think this is the first time we had $1 billion. We got close to like 950 million. But yesterday was the first day $1 billion flowed into the ETFs net, even with the Grayscale outflows. Tesla right now down 2% in the pre-markets. S&P is up just a little bit. S&P, by the way, closed at its highest level ever yesterday at 516, which is right now it's at 517. So absolutely incredible. Palantir down 0.28%. Robinhood down 0.37%. Robinhood, I was looking at some of the technicals, or I was seeing some of these posts on Twitter about the technicals. Robinhood could potentially get a gap fill back to like 14.5. Now, will that happen? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think today the numbers are going to be really good and the market will be the market. If we get back to 14.5, that is the dip. and I will be buying the dip. So that is the dip if that happens. I bought the last dip at like 1585, so we'll see if we get there. Technicals is not looking amazing on Robinhood. Fundamentals looking phenomenal, but technicals might take over given how the stock is looking at. So we'll keep an eye on that later throughout the rest of the week. Bitcoin right here, 73,053 right now, continuing to maintain its momentum. Bitcoin is up 51% since the ETFs launched, 91% from the start of this rally, since the ETFs were approved, and then 91% from the start of this rally, which was about 50 days ago. And then obviously, 1.04 billion of inflows. Now, a couple of other pieces of news that I want to show you guys. So we also have Coinbase. Coinbase did something very interesting yesterday. You know how SoFi raised that debt? They raised the $750 million of convertible debt that they pay back in 2029. SoFi. Yeah, SoFi did that a couple of days ago or last week. Coinbase did the same thing. So right here, there's a price target upgrade on Coinbase from JPM to 300 from 220. I'll read that in a second. But also yesterday, Coinbase after hours, they said, hey, we're raising $1 billion of convertible debt to pay back in 2030. Right now, the stock is down 2%. Investors, the stock was down 5% after hours. I think investors kind of sat on the news and they realized it's not a big deal. Now, SoFi continues to get punished because it's SoFi. We know it's SoFi. They just always will get punished. But I think Coinbase might end up doing what MicroStrategy might do. Now, I don't know if they're going to buy Bitcoin, but they're raising debt. They're going to collateralize their stock, and then they're going to get upgrades on the stock, and the stock's going to do well if Bitcoin goes higher. So they might never have to pay back the debt. That is what MicroStrategy is doing, and so far it's genius because Bitcoin is going up, and Coinbase might be doing the same thing. So JPM says we estimate $220 billion of flows into spot Bitcoin ETFs over the next 3 years. Right now we're at like 55 billion, multiples of what has already been experienced. Coinbase remains well positioned if we are correct, maintains market outperform rating, and increased price target to 300. Look how quickly the narrative has changed on Coinbase. In February 2023, this was a stock that was $34. No one liked it. Everyone thought it was dead, including myself. I'm not against the herd here. I was in the same bucket. It's not that I outwardly said anything bad against it. I just didn't care about Coinbase, right? I was like, oh, it's Coinbase. It's whatever, right? It IPO'd at 250. It's at 30. There's nothing to look at. This is why it's so important to look at something. And like with Robinhood, right, when we saw it at $8 left for dead, we actually looked at it. With Celsius, shout out to Chris and so many else of you in the chat, Matt in the chat, you looked at Celsius at 52 and said, no, there's something here. When a stock gets this beat up, I'm learning, you just look at it a little more. Before you write it off, even Rivian, I think Rivian's not the best company in the world, but it's trading at cash. Maybe there's something to look at. And then they do this R3 event and it goes up 20%, right? Like these are things to look at because the narratives can change in a blink of an eye. And when those narratives change, you've got investors that are now ready to have an appetite for the stock. And so it's incredibly interesting to see how that narrative has changed in the context of Coinbase, even with them announcing potential dilution, because the market knows what's going to happen long term. And so that's what we see right now in the world of Coinbase. We have to try to convince you. Yeah, you have to. I didn't see the Coinbase story at all, quite frankly, because when a stock falls from 240 to $30, you're just like not interested in it. But honestly, that's the time to be the most interested. That is the time to be the most interested. SoFi right now in the pre-markets is down a little bit, down 742, down 0.87%. They peaked at like 780 the other day, and now they are here at 742. Let's get an update on the TikTok ban. This is becoming a big issue now. By the way, Trump and Biden officially secured the respective Republican and Democrat nominees, the delegates they needed here in the United States to be able to run for president. So it looks like we are getting a rematch between Trump and Biden. Seems like that's happening. And that will result in a variety of different things that are going to happen, especially in the context of TikTok. So let's get a small update here on TikTok. Then we'll move on to some more macro stuff. Obviously, this will have implications for Meta stock as well, and see what's going to happen with TikTok. By the way, TikTok lawyers came out yesterday and they said, if you ban us, we're going to fight like hell to fight the lawsuit. So it will definitely be a bit of a battle if this ends up happening.
That this could set off a broader wave of censorship. Why?
I do disagree. It's not censorship. It's national security. Everything people say is TikTok is owned by ByteDance. ByteDance is a Chinese company. If you're a Chinese company, you have no choice but to adhere to the wishes of the Chinese government. It is a threat. 180 million Americans have the ability to have what they're seeing and consuming on TikTok influenced subtly or otherwise by a Chinese-owned company.
Emily, I think the broader fear that, and I can't speak for Elon Musk, but what I think he was getting at was that there are other provisions in the law other than just saying, well, it's controlled by the Chinese government and therefore we can't have it. The bill could be like half a page long, but instead there's other stuff. And you could make the argument without being a tinfoil hattist, I suppose, that if the government can do this, even to a Chinese company, what could they do to other tech companies down the line?
So, I mean, in the United States, we don't have a great firewall. We haven't banned apps before on the basis of national security. So if this bill does move forward and become law, it'll be breaking ground. And TikTok and ByteDance will challenge it in the court systems. And we'll have to see where that comes out. Now, there are a lot of people who say there's a First Amendment issue here. There are 170 million American users on TikTok, according to TikTok. And those people would say, many of them, that banning TikTok would restrict their First Amendment rights.
By the way, the House is voting on the TikTok ban today, like literally in the next hour.
Bill proponents would tell you that this isn't a First Amendment problem because it's a content neutral restriction. They're not restricting on the basis of what you're saying. They're restricting on the basis of the platform, which is different. But even if they're doing that, it's reasonable to ask, is this the narrowest possible way to solve your national security problem? And that's why the Biden administration has spent years trying to negotiate with TikTok to try to come to a less drastic solution.
And that's
and they
what's so,
haven't found one.
No, and sorry to cut you off, Emily. Jim, that's what's so weird. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is based in China. TikTok does not exist in China. ByteDance does not have its own product in its own nation. The fact that they won't just willingly move the servers to the United States or Canada, where they can be sort of better monitored and controlled, to me, is not only just weird, but it seems suspect.
It certainly does seem suspect.
Keep your company, just
Yeah.
move the servers offshore.
But I would argue it's not just the servers, it's the algorithms, it's the software, it's the artificial intelligence. You're just talking about NVIDIA. We're talking about $1, $2, $3 trillion companies growing on the backs of AI. What does AI require other than chips? Training data.
Yeah.
What's one of the best sources of training data? TikTok. So they're sitting on a gold mine. I can.
Well, and you know, he's not wrong about that. Now, the fear, to give some pushback to everyone who just says like, ban it, ban it, ban it, let's get rid of it. And Elon Musk, by the way, disagrees with banning TikTok. And the reason for that, he was tweeting about this last night, is that if they ban TikTok, they will try to ban Twitter. Because the argument for banning TikTok is like shown as national security, but it's not really national security. It's more so, or at least in the documents that the House put out, it's not about a foreign national threat. It's about like some other weird way they're framing it. And basically, they're trying to sugarcoat the argument, even though the argument is around national security, in order to create a precedent, because all the judiciary and constitutional laws and how Congress passes things are primarily based off what has happened in the past. If they set a precedent for being able to ban TikTok, they will create a precedent for being able to ban something like Twitter. So, for example, if they say, hey, TikTok is creating election meddling, and China has control over who they can influence to win the election based on their algorithm, well, so does Twitter, technically. And if they want to put a heavy hand down, then, maybe they make an argument that, hey, we need to get rid of Twitter as well. And so I think that's why Elon's a little afraid of having this happen, because his argument is just like, well, wait a second. If you guys ban TikTok, are you going to use the same argument to ban us? And it's a very nuanced situation. I personally don't know how it's going to play out. I really don't know. I think the bill will probably not pass the Senate, even if it passes the House, because the Senate, you're going to need that majority vote. And I think the Senate, you need 2/3 to get the vote passed, 66%. I don't know if you're going to get 66% of people in the Senate to do this. So we'll see what happens. But so far, it does not look like this thing will get banned, even if it gets passed. Trump doesn't want to ban it. And in the context of national security, I don't know if that's going to be enough of a precedent to be able to get this gone. And so that's what we got right now on TikTok. Now, let me show you guys this right here. This is going to blow your mind. This is a 2-minute demo of a startup that has just raised $21 million. It's called Cognition. The reason we need to look at this is because if we are investors in AI and companies that are built on AI, like a Palantir, this is a startup called Cognition that has made a new tool called Dewin. And I'm just going to play the video and we'll talk about it afterwards. But this is one of the most insane startups I've seen in a very long time. And it just goes to show you how crazy AI is moving. All right, here we go.
Hey, I'm Scott from Cognition AI, and today I'm really excited to introduce you to Dewin, the first AI software engineer. Let me show you an example of Devin in action.
I'm going to ask Devin to benchmark the performance of Llama on a couple different API providers. From now on, Devin is in the driver's seat. First, Devin makes a step-by-step plan of how to tackle the problem. After that, it builds the whole project using all the same tools that a human software engineer would use. Devin has its own command line, its own code editor, and even its own browser. In this case, Devin decides to use the browser to pull up API documentation so that it can read up and learn how to plug into each of these APIs. Here, Devin runs into an unexpected error. Devin actually
For those that haven't got it yet, it is doing software engineering on its own autonomously. They're pseudo replacing software engineers right now.
decides to add a debugging print statement. Reruns the code with the debugging print statement, and then uses the error in the logs to figure out how to fix the bug. Finally, Devin decides to build and deploy a website with full styling as the visualization. You can see the website here.
All of this is possible today because of the advancements that we've made in both reasoning and long-term planning. It's a really hard problem, and we've only just started, but we're super excited about the progress that we've made so far. In the meantime, if you'd like to try out Devin on your own real-world tasks, send us a request below, and we'd be happy to forward it to Devin.
I'll put this LinkedIn video in the chat if anyone wants to check it out. But dude, that's pretty crazy, right? Like software engineers are paid, like, you know, if you're a decent software engineer, at minimum 200,000 plus stock at any of these tech companies. That is a software engineer named Devin that is making mistakes, debugging those mistakes, searching on the internet. You know, software engineers, they go to Stack Overflow. That's one of the biggest blogs for software engineering and like guidance and mentorship. And like, it's like a forum where people talk about stuff. It's literally going to websites to try to find answers like a human would do on Google. And they would go to Stack Overflow or Reddit. That thing is doing that through the built-in browser to try to figure out what they got wrong. And it's all autonomous. I mean, like the cognition, which is, it's ironic, the company's named Cognition Labs, the cognition you need to be able to build out a certain feature on a product that creates, that might be hundreds and hundreds of lines of code and all the work you have to go through the mistakes you have to make before that feature becomes live in an actual deployment for a company. That thing is doing it in a fraction of the time, and it's trained on AI, so it's able to be way more effective at finding the answer, going to the website, debugging, trying to find multiple variations of what it can do. It can do it in hypersonic speed. And so to me, Nathaniel says, I just got here. What AI is he talking about? I'm talking about a new startup called Devin, or it's called it's Cognition AI Labs. Their new product is Devin. Again, I'll put the link in the chat. To me, it just shows you that we are getting into a future where there is going to be such deflation because of AI. Because if I don't have to pay a software engineer $300,000 in equity, and I can just license Devin from Cognition and pay this thing maybe, I don't know, $1,000 a month or whatever to license it, which is great margin for the startup, and it's like 1/1000th of the cost for a tech company. I mean, goodness gracious, dude, like the margins on these companies are going to go insane. The revenue growth is going to be insane. The EPS is going to be insane. The costs are going to decline dramatically. One of the ways to beat back inflation in the next 5 years, quite frankly, might be technologies like Devin that just spur massive deflation because of how productive they make companies. All right, 9:30 a.m. Wednesday, March 13th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Let's see what happens in the world of the market. SoFi down 1.2%. Coinbase down about 0.64%. Still remaining above 254, above that IPO price from 2020. Celsius is green. Celsius got upgraded today to about $105. So Celsius up 2%. Tesla down 2.3%. Not too bad. Not falling off a cliff after the pre-markets. It is already down 2%. Maybe it will stay down 2%, or maybe it goes down a little bit lower, but there's not a ton of selling yet as the market is open. NVIDIA actually sells off. So NVIDIA peaked at 920. It was at 930 yesterday in overnight markets. Right now, it looks like it's trying to go below 900. So there's definitely some sell side pressure on NVIDIA. You got a nice red candle being created. John said, is there a price that would make you start loading the boat on Tesla shares? Yeah, I think 150 150, 160 would be the price. But then again, I don't think 170 is that different from 160. I just think loading the boat means like, yeah, I would wait for 155-ish, 160 to really get interested. Robinhood up 1646 right now. Palantir 2469. They're down about 0.19%. Robinhood up 0.31%. TSM down about 2% on the day. Boeing, we talked about them yesterday on the market close. One of the quality control engineers was found dead, who was giving depositions to one of the investigations going on around Boeing about the company using faulty parts to save money in their aircrafts for the past decade, which is what we're seeing now in the 737 MAX, the ramifications of that. Yeah, he's dead. He's not alive anymore. And, people are saying it was a suicide, and people are very skeptical that it was actually a suicide. So that's what we have right now in Boeing. Boeing right now down 0.22%. Bitcoin, 72,603. So Bitcoin fell from 73,000 now to 72,000. So you got Bitcoin falling about 500 points. New York Community Bank down 0.44%. DraftKings getting some love. This thing was hammered after earnings, even though I thought they had a phenomenal earnings. They did acquire a big company for $750 million, so that's probably what made shareholders not the happiest. But it was a good acquisition. Right now, $42.95, up 1.39%. KRE regional banks are up 0.25%. Rocket Lab down about 0.46%. On the shoe company from the Switzerland, they're up 2%. They were down about 15% yesterday. Oracle, good earnings. They're basically flat today. They had a nice 10% rally over the past couple of days. CleanSpark up 1.76%. We'll talk about miners in a second. I listened to a lot of stuff last night to try to understand what's going on with the miners. Bernstein put out a report that says Bitcoin's going to 150K and that the miners are the best proxy on Bitcoin. Bernstein, one of the funds on Wall Street, they basically said, hey, we think Bitcoin's going to 150. We think the halving event is going to be monumental, and the miners are the best way to play this. So there's obviously institutional bullishness around the miners, but these guys are just not holding their gains. Now they're up from CleanSpark was $2 like a year ago, right? So it's up 800%. But the people that want the alpha from 16 to 20 or to 32, you might have to wait till Bitcoin really breaks out. ARKB up 2%, IBIT up 1.93%, and Archer Aviation up 4.2%. Ethereum right now just below 4,000, is at 3,999. Lockheed Martin is up a little bit. QQQ down a little bit, down 0.39%, and ARK Innovation $50.68. They are up 0.78% right now. Do people really eat at Kava? So I've never eaten at Kava, but people do. Kava right now $67, up 2%. They had a decent earnings when we went through their earnings. They're opening up a lot of stores. For the margins they have for a restaurant are pretty phenomenal. I think it's like 25%, which is incredible for a restaurant. So Kava is interesting. I've never eaten there before, but it is something that gets people excited. Tesla recovering a little bit. Look at that green candle. People are buying up a little bit of the dip. Where's Palantir? You said Palantir's up? Oh, look at Palantir. There you go. See, this is the thing. So for those that are just joining, Peter Thiel sold 7 million shares of Palantir yesterday, $178 million. I think personally that him selling those many shares is simply because there was enough exit liquidity for him to get away with doing that and for the stock not to tank. I mean, for the stock to be up almost 1% after a set, like imagine this was like May 2023 and Peter sold 7 million shares, the stock would be down like 5%. Because everyone would be like, oh my God, founder selling shares, blah, 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 blah. Now the narrative has changed. The narrative has changed. Fundamentally, it has changed. It's changed on Coinbase. It's changed on Robinhood. It's changed on Palantir. Now people are buying up the stock after Thiel dumped 7 million on them, and they're buying it at $24.90 when obviously Thiel bought it at like 10 cents or whatever. So just incredible stuff to see in terms of momentum for Palantir. Robinhood having some nice momentum, nice green candle there, 1.46% as well. February numbers will be out for Robinhood. I'll be covering that live in the market close, and we'll see what it looks like. I gave a preview on my Twitter last night. Overall, the TLDR of that post, I think they're going to have 200,000 members. They're going to have north of 3.5 billion deposits, and they're going to have probably $6.5 billion of trading volume on crypto, which just means that March numbers are also going to be in line, and Q1 is going to be a massive beat. That's how I'm thinking these earnings are going to go. Bitcoin obviously had a great month in February, which means the volumes on Robinhood are going to be strong. They peaked at number 48 or 49 on the App Store. So I think we're going to see a lot more momentum, not to mention the UK and the EU, all those users now coming onto the platform as well. And the credit card launching in a couple weeks. NVIDIA, 902, down 1.8%. It just fell below 900 at 896. That under 900 dip got eaten so hard, dude. It lasted for like 2 minutes. Like that's what she said, but like it lasted for so little, and then boom, it just gets eaten up. Now right above 900. The demand for NVIDIA, volume 6.49 million, is just incredible, absolutely incredible. TFC up 0.46%. Enphase 120. PayPal, dare I say PayPal, is making a run because this is the third day in a row, not one, not two, three. It is Wednesday, third day of the week that PayPal is opening at 60 and maintaining 60 Dolores. 60.47 right now, up 0.7%. I mean, dude, if PayPal makes a comeback, if PayPal's the comeback kid of the century, first of all, my options, guys, if PayPal gets to 125, I make like $50,000. Now it has to happen by January 2025. So I don't, this is going to be, it's a hard thing to have. But even if PayPal gets to like 90, I'm going to make like 15, 20K. So we need pay. Now, if PayPal can at least get to 75, I'll break even. So that'll be, but if PayPal can just get higher and do what it needs to do, we know it's stupidly undervalued. Maybe this three-day momentum is signaling that the street's realizing it, or maybe the company's buying back all their stock as well. And that's helping it start to go higher. SoFi 752, Coinbase 258, Nvidia 902, S&P 516, Palantir trying to make a run at 25, 24.91, Robin at 16.75. That's also up 2% right now, trying to break out a bit. Let's look at the crypto stocks. So crypto, let's see what we got here. Oh, wow, it's all green. CleanSpark's up 30%, Coinbase up about 1%, Marathon's up 2%, Riot's up 2%, Cypher's up 3%. So a nice green day after a pretty bad red day yesterday. MicroStrategy, $1,600. MicroStrategy is $1,600. Goodness gracious. $1,600 right now, up 3%. Celsius, wow, 94. Who put up, let me, real quick, I have it saved right here. The upgrade for Celsius was done by, oh no, I have the SMCI one saved. We'll talk about SMCI in a second, but the upgrade was done by, oh, I got it. It was upgraded by Jefferies. So they moved it to 105. This is what they said. The company is moving into its global rollout phase, starting with Canada, the UK, and Ireland. The analyst tells investors. The firm further contends that Celsius brand can establish a new clean energy category in these markets, accelerating an already growing energy drink. Jefferies estimates that the company can reach $376 million in international sales by 2028, or 9% of sales versus about 4% currently. So up 4%. Celsius is basically up 35% since the January lows, and it's done pretty well. Chris said he's buying Snowflake. Snowflake right now, let's take a look at that. Snowflake 163, so that's up 1%. Chris says sell-off is way overdone. The MACD and the RSI indicate buying time is now. Snowflake right now is down pretty aggressively, obviously, from those earnings. RSI right now in the monthly is at 46, so definitely not in the overbought category. Again, Snowflake was at 235. Now it's at 163, so basically a 30% drawdown for essentially a CEO replacement and not the best guidance. But I don't know if that's enough to tank it that much. But let's just say the street's not that excited. If they deliver and they beat their guidance expectations and the new CEO does not seem like some guy who can't get the job done, yeah, maybe the stock really rebounds. And so we'll see how that plays out. Palantir 24.97, Robin at 16.77. Okay, Path had earnings today, right? UiPath, they're up 1.75%. Let me try to pull up their numbers real quick. UiPath IR. Let's see. I think they had earnings in the morning. They did. Correct? They did. No, they didn't. It's after hours. It's after hours. Yeah, it's after hours. It's not today. Or it's later today. Okay, so Path is up right now. The market's probably expecting the numbers will be good. That's why they're up 1%. We'll see how the numbers look like on the market close, but that's why these guys are up right now. Hims is at an all-time high. Where's Hims? Wow, Hims is at 15, dude. Hims was at 11 before earnings. No, 10. Goodness gracious, Hims. And this is a company that deserves it, by the way. They're profitable now. They're up 3.5% today. Hims is a profitable company in an interest rate environment that it rewards profitability. They're growing like crazy, and there is demand for their product. And I think they have like 86% revenue growth, 48% subscriber growth, and they put up a profit. So they deserve it. There you go. Hims. Continuing to get some love. Dollar Tree took a dump. They did have earnings today, right? Yeah, they did. Dollar Tree down 13%. Oh boy, that's not good. Let's try to pull up their numbers. Dollar Tree. Does anyone live near a Dollar Tree? Is it international, by the way? Or is it only the United States? Because I used to live near one. I don't live one anymore. Oh, wow. They're closing 1,000 stores. And they lost. They had a fourth quarter loss, not a profit. That's not great news, dude. We don't want to see that at a dollar store. We want to see a store that has low margins but very cheap stuff to be able to continue to sell and not be in that big of an issue. So Dollar Tree, they're getting rid of 970 stores. Company took a $600 million charge for a portfolio optimization review and incurred a goodwill impairment. Okay, so the loss is not that. Goodwill impairment is not exactly the same as losing actual money. I think without that, they'd probably be profitable. Yeah. Or they would only lose 70 billion. So it looks like without the goodwill impairment, they only lose 70 million, which is not that bad. Now they were profitable a year ago. So things have changed, which is why this earnings is getting hammered, down 13%. But they had sales of 8.63 billion. That's below estimates. They expect 31 to 32 billion for sales this year. They expect profit of 670 to 730 a share. Okay, so the net loss is not that big of a deal because the goodwill impairment charge. The closing 1,000 stores, that is a little bit more concerning to me. Why are they closing 1,000 stores? Yeah, I'm gonna go through their earnings later and see what they said about inflation. I hope they're not saying inflation is a concern, because you don't want to see Dollar Tree say that, hey, inflation is a concern, because if inflation is a concern at Dollar Tree, it's going to be a concern in other places. Now, I don't think they will, because Home Depot said it's not a concern. Lowe's said it's not a concern. Target said it's not a concern. Walmart said it's not a concern. Costco said it's not a concern. So if Dollar Tree says it's a concern, they might be using it as an excuse to get away with the crappy earnings, which is what companies do. I forgot the one company that said the Ukraine war was the reason they had a crappy earnings. I'm forgetting it. It was like 2 weeks ago, but they're like, yeah, the war in Ukraine is, we can't sell our software. It's like, dude, the fucking war in Ukraine is not stopping you from that. So it might be an excuse. We'll see when we go through their earnings. Palantir, $25, baby. 25 Dolores. I bought like 100 shares yesterday. I bought $2,000 worth of it in my Roth. I bought like 50 shares just in my regular portfolio. So I did buy yesterday at like 24.70, 24.80. Yeah, look, I think Palantir in this 22 to 25 range is a buy. I think it's a buy. And so I'm buying here, and we'll see where it goes from there. But right now, up about 1%. Again, there is more demand even after Peter Thiel selling 7 million shares. I'm in Dollar General and getting nervous for tomorrow. Well, maybe Dollar Tree kind of has a different version of operating, which is why, maybe Dollar General is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, so it doesn't look good for the dollar stores right now if they're putting up those numbers. But we'll see. Maybe there's better management from Dollar General. Dollar General is up 15% year to date. So investors have rewarded them a lot this year. New York Community Bank up 1%. PayPal, oh my God, PayPal's up 1.32%. Oh my God. I am going to macaculate, which rhymes with a word called ejaculate. Oh my God. PayPal, $60.83. Dude, I have like, I haven't seen this in so long. Last time I saw this level, I was going viral on Wall Street Bets. Last time I saw this, I was going viral on Wall Street Bets. Ringing the bell about PayPal, and this is the last time I saw these levels, and so it's just really happy to see these levels. It's just really happy. I'm not ringing the bell. Don't ever ask me to ring the bell now when it comes to PayPal. I will never ring that bell. I am very triggered from ringing the bell last time, and I can't do it again. We just need this thing to go up. That's it. We just need the thing to go up. That's all. Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is so beautiful. Okay, so let's listen to a little bit more of Saylor. We listened to a small clip of him yesterday, just in the morning, talking about not selling Bitcoin. But let's hear him talk a little bit more about what MicroStrategy is doing and how they're getting away with this. MicroStrategy up 4%. Obviously, if you got options on MicroStrategy, you're doing very, very well. I have one friend, Josh, on Twitter. He's up like 1,400x. He's up 140,000 on one call. He bought a MicroStrategy. I think he bet like 14,000. He's up 140, and he bought this back in June. So I mean, those options have just done phenomenal for investors. Clive says Peter sold Palantir and bought PayPal. Could you imagine Peter Thiel puts out a 13G tomorrow and says, "Hey, we bought freaking." Bought freaking PayPal, dude. Everyone would go insane. All right, here's Saylor on what's going on at MicroStrategy.
Comes to mind.
Something else I've noticed as I've talked to different investors, different analysts, is that MicroStrategy is actually trading at a pretty steep premium to Bitcoin itself. According to one analysis that I saw today, as much as 90 to 100% premium to Bitcoin. Is that Is that justified? And why do you think it's justified?
Right now, an institutional investor that wants to buy Bitcoin has a choice of investing in the ETFs, of which BlackRock and Fidelity are very well known, or investing in some other company that has a Bitcoin strategy like MicroStrategy. You could think of the ETFs like ocean-going container ships. They can carry huge amounts of capital. You can invest $1 billion a day in the BlackRock ETF, so they could take on hundreds of billions of dollars of capital. They're not going to trade at a premium, but what they don't have is performance and leverage. MicroStrategy is different because our capital isn't, you can't redeem our shares. So it's possible for our shares to trade at a premium. We're an operating company, and that means when our shares trade at a premium, we can either raise capital through convertible debt or through equity. When we do that, we're doing it at a premium to the underlying assets. That captures an accretion for our underlying shareholders. So following a debt deal where we swap the debt for Bitcoin, our common stock shareholders have more Bitcoin per share than they did before the deal. So another way to say that is, if you want to pay 25 basis points and be 1-to-1 levered, then you would buy the ETF. But if you actually want to generate an accretion or a yield and not pay the fee and have leverage, then you would buy a stock like MicroStrategy. You could think of us as like, we're like air freight. We're Federal Express. We can take you faster, but we're never going to carry the same amount of capital in our payload as a supertanker or a container ship. So there's place for both of those strategies. And in fact, they're very complementary. I think the ETFs benefit from the existence of companies like MicroStrategy, and MicroStrategy benefits from the existence of the ETFs.
You can disagree with what he's saying. You cannot deny that it is working. MicroStrategy returns are not illegal. They're not doing anything illegal. They are simply buying Bitcoin, collateralizing their stock. Bitcoin goes up because they own Bitcoin because of collateralizing their stock, aka taking on debt. The value of their stock goes up because now they're sitting on billions of profits. Right now, they're sitting on about $7 billion of profits of Bitcoin. So when they pay back the debt in stock, the debt issuers are happily taking the stock because the stock is worth way more than the percentage APY they would get on the debt. It makes a lot of sense. The only way this collapses is if Bitcoin collapses, right? So it's a house of cards, but it's a house of cards built on a foundation of this digital asset that the entire world now is starting to recognize is actually a digital asset. Now, when Bitcoin collapses, if that ever happens to an egregious level, which maybe if it goes to 200, it collapses to like 80, it's not that egregious because their debt was issued at far lower prices than 80,000 for Bitcoin. Maybe that doesn't matter. But if it crashes back down to 10,000, yeah, MicroStrategy is screwed. MicroStrategy is absolutely screwed. So it makes a lot of sense. The question is, will MicroStrategy be able to keep it up? Or will Bitcoin be able to keep it up in order for MicroStrategy to be able to continue this? So that's what it means, but it's not illegal. It's not a Ponzi scheme. Anyone saying that, I think it's wrong. I think a lot of people on Twitter were saying it's not a Ponzi scheme. It's perfectly legal. It just depends on Bitcoin. Like FTX was a Ponzi scheme, taking customer deposits and then investing it in all this random shit. Like that's a Ponzi. This to me is taking a highly, highly leveraged bet on Bitcoin. And by the way, investors are supporting that bet because they're investing in the stock. They can't do this if investors weren't investing. So investors obviously seem to be okay with it. And that's what's happening right now. And that's why Bitcoin's going up. PayPal 60.78 right now, 1.25% on the day. Incredible to see PayPal at 1% for the third day in a row. We'll see if that continues. Palantir 24.78 got eaten up a little bit at that $25 level. Snowflake 162, UiPath 24.80, HIMS 14.96, just below 15. Entire market falling just a little bit. Nothing too crazy, but still green for the day. Robinhood 16.75 as well. And again, Bitcoin 72,354 right now. It's straight up gambling. Let's be real. I don't think it's gambling. I think it's a gamble on Bitcoin. Yes. But again, this is where it comes down to the thesis. Like, do you believe Bitcoin is like a real thing? And if you're someone like Michael Saylor, it's really interesting. Maybe one day later we'll react to this clip. There's a 26-minute clip, so I can't play the entire clip. There's a 26-minute clip where Michael Saylor is talking about what do you do if you had money? Like if you watch this clip in 2019 when they had in 2020 when COVID hit and they had $500 million in cash, MicroStrategy realized Saylor realized that the government was printing so much money, again, like the 40% of the money supply was printed in 18 months, that unless they did something with their cash, it would get inflated away. So he had two options. It was either we give it back to the shareholders in the form of a buyback or dividend or whatever, or we invest it somewhere. And so he put out a press release back in 2020, April, where he said, hey, we're looking to invest this money. We don't know what we're going to do with it, but we're going to do something with it. And that's when he came upon Bitcoin. And that's when he realized all of the benefits to putting it in Bitcoin versus buying stocks or buying the S&P or buying, the real estate. Like his argument is that inflation is not 3% year over year. That headline CPI number is absolute nonsense. It's closer to 10%, and it's been closer to 7-10% for the past 100 years, which is why if the S&P gets you on average 8%, you can't invest in the S&P. You can't invest in the index because you're not even beating inflation. Like you need higher returns. That's not acceptable for someone who's looking to grow their wealth. So for him, that's where he discovered Bitcoin, and that's when he realized the value of it, which allows it, to go higher. And then he bet the whole farm on it with MicroStrategy. Golden Eagle says, can I take Bitcoin to a store and buy goods with it? If not, it's worth nothing. Actually, in Europe, there's a lot of places you can go and pay your coffee with Bitcoin. I was watching someone yesterday from Europe basically say, like, yeah, people say there's no use cases, but in Europe, at least, or at least where he was living in Europe, there's a lot of places that just accept Bitcoin. And I think that will further increase, like the day Walmart says we accept Bitcoin, dude, the day Chick-fil-A says, hey, on Sundays, we accept Bitcoin, that would change everything. But if like one of these big companies says, yeah, you can pay us in Bitcoin, they have basically said the value of Bitcoin is not going to be eroding, which means if it's not eroding, we are happily going to take your Bitcoin. In fact, if it's increasing, let's say you pay, $50 for, I was going to say for a burger. That doesn't make sense. Like $10 for a burger and fries and a Coke. If that $10 that you paid in Bitcoin ends up becoming $15 in the next, year for McDonald's, their earnings will go up if they don't sell that Bitcoin. So it's a very interesting way for how this could play out. But I don't think the big boys are immediately going to allow that yet, just because they need to see it actually happen. Richard says, my dispensary I go to has a Bitcoin ATM. There you go. It makes sense that it's at a dispensary because, dispensaries are probably will accept anything. They don't care. So, I mean, I think we're going to see that continue to go higher and higher and higher over the next couple of years. Okay, let's get an update on Bitcoin as well, and then we'll move on to some startup news and some other tech stuff I want to talk about. Here's Galaxy Digital CEO for a couple minutes just talking about what's happening in the context of the Bitcoin rally, and then we'll move on from there.
Right, that all of a sudden the U.S. has broadly endorsed Bitcoin, right? You think about what's going on in D.C., this is a vote, right? The American people have just voted, and they have voted they like Bitcoin and they like digital assets. And so Washington needs to get off the stick, get off the couch and start doing something, right? This is going to be an issue for Democrats in this election who have been perceived to be standing in the way of Bitcoin in races like Ohio and in Montana, the Senate races. The crypto pack is putting in money. And so I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing baby boomers get their first shot, right, through the RIA channel. Like there's $80 billion or $80 trillion of baby boomer wealth, and they're putting a small amount in. And Bitcoiners don't like to sell. Like they often think of their net worth and how many coins they have, not how many dollars they have.
That doesn't explain gold, Mike.
Well, listen, gold's going up as well. We have a political situation where both candidates seem to want to spend a whole lot of money.
Right.
When Biden's deficit or Biden's, budget came out with a trillion plus deficit, that doesn't engender a lot of spirit when it comes to wanting fiscal prudence, right? Bitcoin has always been a report card on fiscal stewardship, and we've got no stewardship in DC right now.
And we're cutting eventually. Don't you think Bitcoin is expecting the Fed to, when it pivoted, did Bitcoin go down because of the hiking cycle we were in? Now it's going back up
Listen, there's two vectors of Bitcoin. One is adoption, and this move is mostly adoption, and the other is macro. And the macro factors are, right, the Fed, but it's also, and it's mostly Congress and the budget, right? We are running deficits that are in crises levels.
Right.
And when you look at our fiscal situation,
I think we're going to both agree it's the adoption issue right this very moment. 100%. It's more about adoption than it is about anything else, and it's adoption via the ETF, and therefore we have like a supply and demand problem.
And having.
prices are set on the margin.
You can throw in the halving. Let me ask you this: Ethereum right now has moved in a big way. Part of that is on the back now of speculation or of an expectation somehow that we're going to have a Ethereum ETF and that is going to create a similar kind of dynamic. Do you think that that's the right way to think about it? And do you actually think that there will be an Ethereum ETF?
Listen, I think there's a fierce debate inside the SEC right now, right? I mean, Gary Gensler, before he was at the SEC, is on tape saying Ethereum is definitely not a security. Since he's been at the SEC, he hasn't made a ruling on it. And I think what the SEC is doing is debating, can they call Ethereum a security with this idea that it changed when it went from proof of work, right, for validation to proof of stake. If they can't make that argument, and I think it's a tough argument to make, they have to, they're going to approve the ETF because it's the same argument that won the Bitcoin ETF. There already is a futures Ethereum ETF. And so if you have it for futures, you have to have it for cash. That's what the court said last time.
Mike,
we'll see if the Ethereum ETF gets approved, but that is one of the arguments that is the next catalyst in the broader crypto universe, which is that if the Bitcoin ETF is approved, well, then wait a second. Why won't Ethereum also get approved? I mean, it seems like it's inevitability if Bitcoin gets approved. Ethereum right now, 3,944, just under 4,000. Square, this company that I've been bullish on for a very, very long time. Look at Square today. Oh my God, it's up 5%. I've been pretty bullish on Square since $39. And so that bullishness is paying off. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying that to trigger Philip in the chat. Philip, you got to remind me to look at Square. I didn't even know. It's not on the watch list. So I'm going to make it on the watch list. You got to tell me when it's breaking out. I didn't know it was breaking out right now. There you go. Square's up 4%. I don't know if there's any news for it. I obviously was not that bullish on this company when it was at $40, but the Bitcoin momentum has definitely helped it. Cash App, #1 app in the United States, basically for the past 2 years in finance. No one's been able to replace it. PayPal, #2. But there you go. Square at $85 right now, up 4.04%. They had a really good earnings. Jack Dorsey, not a fan of him as a CEO, but got to give him credit. That call, he was great. I mean, he proved to investors that Square is worth investing in. And Bitcoin momentum is also helping Square as well. And so now we got Square starting to surge a bit higher. Okay, so that's what we got on Square. Now, here's an article right here that is continuing to pile on the Tesla hate. So right now, Tesla currently, Palantir 2470, 2465, Tesla 173, so still down 2.3%. Here's the title: EV euphoria is dead. Automakers trumpet consumer choice for U.S. car shoppers. This is a headline that's been going on for actually a while now. Key points: automakers from Ford Motors and General Motors to Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Jaguar are scaling back or delaying their electric vehicle plans. That is true. Ford cut down a factory in Michigan last month. Though consumer demand for EVs hasn't shown up in the way executives had expected, sales of the vehicles are still predicted to increase in the years to come. A broad return to more mixed offering of vehicles with lineups of gas-powered vehicles alongside hybrids of fully electrical options assumes an all-electric future at a much slower pace, and it calls attention to ambitious EV targets set for the years ahead. Now, here's what's really interesting on this concept of EV demand. I think there's two sort of core elements to this that are very important to understand if you're a Tesla shareholder. Number one, is it good for these auto manufacturers to think in their heads that EV demand is falling off a cliff, therefore they don't prioritize EVs as much as they were to prioritize ICE vehicles that have better features or little small innovations? Because if it's good that Ford and Stellantis and Volkswagen and Mercedes don't focus on EVs, maybe that leaves Tesla with all of the innovation, all of the R&D, all of the market share, all of the mind share, all of the brand associated with electric vehicles, and they become the go-to option because if Mercedes is not offering you an EV, if Honda's not offering you an EV, then Tesla's the only option left, which is really what's happened over the past decade. Or the bear case to that is that if these guys are not focusing on EVs as heavily as they should, then Tesla's the only game in town. And if Tesla's the only game in town, consumers feel like maybe a bit more apprehensive, right? They want more choice. And if there's not enough choice, if there's not enough diversity, if there's not enough of the, my parents have, my family's driven a Honda for 2 generations, 3 generations. So if Honda does not offer us an EV, maybe we are apprehensive to the concept of EVs in general, right? That anxiety that is created if you've only known what an ICE vehicle looks like. So I think it goes both ways. Either it's good that these companies are sleeping at the wheel, literally. That was good. I just thought of that on the spot. That was fucking good. They're literally sleeping at the wheel when it comes to EVs. And Tesla is left to take over market share. or it's bad because they're not expanding the TAM because they're not doing the marketing to get people interested in EVs, and then Tesla is left on an island doing it itself. So that, I think there's two ways to kind of think of what that has to do with EV demand. Bro, Honda has electric Prelude. I know, I was just using Honda as an example. My point is Honda just doesn't, like, they're not, when I go to a Honda dealership, they don't really pound you on the EVs. They're trying to just sell you a car, right? They don't only offer EVs. But yes, pretty much every big car company offers some version of EVs. It's just a question of how heavy do they push it? Because if they're not pushing it that heavy, then consumers are just going to buy whatever's the cheapest and whatever the easiest for them. Fred says, my dad is 81 and he bought a Tesla last year. I love it. That's amazing. Right now, Celsius breaking out a little bit, 94.58. Celsius has a short float of, I think, 15%, roundabout 15-20%. So maybe there is a little bit of a squeeze going on Celsius. SMCI, by the way, got upgraded today. I'll read that in a second, but SMCI stock right now is down 1%, and Nvidia is okay. Nvidia now 885. Nvidia fell from 920. So Nvidia is down about 4% on the day. We'll see if that dip gets eaten up as well. Mo Love says, okay to be asleep at the wheel with FSD. That's a good one. I should have said that too. I should have said they're asleep at the wheel, but if they had FSD, it doesn't matter if there's that would have been a good one. I missed that opportunity. I missed it. Oh, we got an update. Okay, so we got two things. So first, we got two updates, and then I will get you guys out of here. Two updates, and then we'll be done. By the way, Karp speaking on CNBC at 11 a.m. We'll cover that on the market close because we're not, CNBC, sometimes they do it at 11:30, 11:15. They're always never on time with that. So probably won't be able to cover that live, but we will cover that on the market close. And we'll see what Karp had to say. I'll also probably just get the video and post it on Twitter immediately. So please make sure to follow me on Twitter. You guys will have access to all of that. Okay, so two things I want to show you. SMCI, first of all, their price target, and then one more update. Strawberry says, hey, what about Path? Path has earnings after hours. So we'll cover Path in the market close as well. Okay, so SMCI, Bank of America, they just raised the price target to 1,040 2 weeks ago. They now are raising it to 1,280. Bank of America analyst Ruplu Bhattacharya, it's a hell of a name, raised the firm's price target to 1,280 with a buy rating. The firm has raised its expectations for AI server industry growth based on the firm's semiconductor analyst team's revised outlook for accelerator total addressable market, and now expects industry revenues to grow to be about $39 billion to $200 billion from 2023 to 2027. The firm adds that SMCI's competitive advantages include a building block architecture that helps to quickly incorporate new technology to reduce time to market, relationship with leading AI CPU, GPU providers, i.e. NVIDIA, that's their biggest client, and its ability to customize configurations to specific customer applications and its liquid cooling offerings. There you go. So SMCI now, I said I should buy it at 680 and everyone said no in the chat. Now Bank of America has their clients buying this damn thing to 1,280. So we could have had a double or close to a double. It is what it is. It's so funny because the narrative changed. I'm just playing around, but the narrative changed because at 690, it kind of felt like this thing was falling off a cliff, and the stock that was at $1,000 is like going down the drain. Remember that day when it fell to 690? Everyone, that was the day the guy's portfolio lost 70% because he had $1,000 call options that expired. But now the narrative's kind of like it's in the S&P 500. AI demand is growing. NVIDIA is growing. NVIDIA is their biggest client. Server demand for GPUs is growing. So fuck it. 1,280 on the stock, right? Like it's just insane how narratives change that quickly. And if you're long term, you get to benefit from those narratives as soon as they change. Okay, last thing for me is this. So I just logged on Twitter and I saw this. So remember that company startup around robotics, Figure? They just put out a new video, OpenAI plus Figure. OpenAI is providing visual reasoning and language understanding. Figure's neural networks are delivering fast, low-level, dexterous robot actions. So here's a new update they posted today. And in this update, they're going to show the third rendition of these robots doing stuff. Again, if you're big on robotics, if you're big on Tesla, Optimus, this startup doing what they're doing is obviously very good for the space, and we'll see how this plays out. So here's their latest update on robots. Give it a second. It's loading. Let me reload it real quick. Okay, here we go.
Hey, Figure One, what do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great. Can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Great. So based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
Dog, that's crazy. That's crazy.
All right. So how do you think you did?
I think I did pretty well. The apple found its new owner, the trash is gone, and the tableware is right where it belongs.
I agree. Thanks, Figure One.
You're welcome. If there's anything else you need help with, just let me know.
Yeah, human beings have our days numbered. Dude, that is insanity. I'm going to put that link in the chat if anyone wants to watch it again. Holy crap, dude. What was really cool as well that I liked in the video is how he was putting the dishes back. It was very dexterous. It was very like, it wasn't rigid. He wasn't like tumbling over the apple. He was just like boom, 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 right? It kind of looked like a human. It looked like a regular person was washing the dishes or whatever. Like that was pretty crazy. And OpenAI, it seems like obviously they're partnering with OpenAI, and OpenAI invested in the company. OpenAI's LLMs are going to be training the neural nets that Figure creates, and then you're going to get embodied AI, which is the whole thesis around humanoid robotics. And that robot, right now it's doing the dishes. Imagine that thing at a factory for 10x less the cost of an individual human worker building a car. Think about the margins on cars, how they suck. Those margins are going to go up. Earnings are going to go up. Productivity is going to go up. GDP is going to go up. Like it's going to be a big deal. So there you go. Nice update on Figure. And oh, look, that's a really big thing for Tesla Optimus, dude. If Figure can do this, I would imagine Tesla Optimus is going to try to be doing this as well. They're all going to go in the space. It's going to be a big industry in general. So when you see videos like that, I know that's not the Tesla bot, which is, it is what it is. But if you imagine the Tesla bot will be as good as that, or if not better than that, that is why the Tesla dip gets exciting to me. It's not FSD. It's not the cars, even though that's also very exciting. It's that video that we just saw. So Fred says, are we supposed to use pronouns for that thing? So hold on. So I got to show this tweet yesterday. So, I said my pronouns are buy and hold. Yesterday, I quote tweeted that tweet with a new one. And I said my pronouns, which I did do yesterday, are buy the dip. I don't think the robot will care about their pronouns, but that is as what I said yesterday. Today, I need to quote tweet this. And I'm not original here. My friend texted me that I should do another one. And so I might have to steal his tweet. Today, my pronouns are bisexual. B-U-Y. Sexual. Get it? Bisexual. So that's actually, I thought that was a good one too. Anyway, yeah, robots are coming. It's going to be fucking crazy, dude. That video was insane. I just saw, I never watched that video. It was posted like 10 minutes ago. So I was like, all right, let's watch it together. And OpenAI training the robots, then the robots actually being able to execute on tasks. It's going to be pretty cool. PayPal broke 61. Let's freaking go. Let's freaking Go. Nice green candle on PayPal. Nice green candle on PayPal. You guys don't get it? Bisexual? B-U-Y sexual? It's a joke. How do you guys not get it? That's such a good joke. Now, it's not my joke. My friend gave it to me, but you guys know my originality with this stuff is never the best, except when I'm on the live stream. Then I'm on a different energy. But in general, that was good. Okay, so PayPal. Let me look at my PayPal options right now. How bad are they? Wow, they're up 10%, folks. We are only down 5,500 on these options. Look at that. We are making our way back to 10,000, folks. This was down like 7,000 the other day. We are making our way back slowly but surely. PayPal up 2% today. There's no catalyst for PayPal to be up, so I don't know why the hell it's up. Maybe the buybacks are starting, but there we go. There we go. You're killing a good joke. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so there we go. That's what we got on PayPal, and let's see where it goes. Emit pronoun is emit. Yeah, that's correct. Oh my God, the jokes are great. I love these jokes. This is great. Up in sympathy with Square. Yeah, maybe it might be up in sympathy with Square. Square right now still is 86. Wow, Square's breaking out 5%. Square's breaking up 5%. Nvidia recovering a little bit, 893 from 885, and then Celsius at 993. SoFi 751. Palantir 24.96, and Robinhood $17, baby. Let's get this sucker to 25, dude. Let's get this sucker to 25. Trying to make some damn money. And today I'll give you guys the earnings numbers, not the earnings number, the February numbers on the market close. So we've got Robinhood 1704 and Palantir 25.96, up 1.07% on the day. Coin up 4%. Yeah, incredible stuff. Okay, word of the day. That's it for me. Also, I have a question for you guys. And I need you guys to answer honestly, because I've been getting a lot of DMs about this, and I'm only going to put in the work if you guys actually want me to do it. So please answer correctly. I've been getting a lot of DMs for people that want merch. Do you guys actually want merch? Do you actually want merch? Because I will put in the work of building it out for a month if you guys actually want it. But I need to know you actually want merch. Now, I think the merch that I'm thinking of, honestly, is going to be Palantir related. So technically, you can't use a company's logo and sell stuff because they like sue you. But I think Palantir loves me. In fact, I have a lot of sources that say Palantir fucking loves me. So I don't think they're going to care. I don't think I'm going to get a cease and desist by Palantir, especially because they're probably going to want people to be wearing their logo. So I'm just going to take Palantir's logo. I'm just going to put it on there if you guys want it. If you don't want it, then no. So that I need to know if you got, because I'm not going to go through building out a store with merch if no one wants it, but I do want to know if people do want it. Okay, it seems like most people saying no. All right, so then until that changes, we're going to do no, because I'm getting DMs that people want it, but I don't really want to build out merch, dude, if no one really wants it. So you should make it personal to you. Maybe, dude, but I feel like people would rather want to rock like Palantir stuff versus like Emit stuff. You know, it's like cooler stuff. So they will see. No, dude, honestly, dude, I don't think they will sue me. I don't think they would. Also, dude, there's already so many websites that sell Palantir merch. They don't give a fuck. They like their brand being shown. But it's a question of, do I want to go through the work? Because I don't want to go through the work if people don't really want merch, dude. MicroStrategy up 7%. Oh my God, that's amazing. Incredible stuff. Do a bisexual shirt. That's hilarious. Confirmed Emit is on the Palantir payroll. No, I'm not on the payroll. I don't think they would care, dude. They're a multi-billion, like when you're that big of a company, you kind of don't care, especially when you're still growing. Now, Disney cares because Disney makes money off merch. Palantir doesn't make money off merch. Palantir makes money off software. So I don't think they would care. But in general, we can see if we have to do it. Okay, so most people are saying no. All right, so that's cool. I wanted to get confirmation because we want Kelly merch. That's hilarious, dude. Because it takes a long time to build merch, dude. It's not easy. It takes like a good couple months if you want to do it right. And I'm just like, I don't want to do all that shit if people actually don't want it. Okay, word of the day. This is so funny. There is no definition. Word of the day is octhrope, but dictionary.com doesn't have a definition. So let's read the sentences and see if we can use it in the context clues. Okay, the password must include at least one octhrope for added security. The code requires an octhrope to denote a section break. That is so That is so interesting. Okay, so hold on. So octthorpe right here, another term for the pound sign. That is, dude, I would not have thought that's what octthorpe means. Another term for the pound sign.
Octothorpe.
Octothorpe. Interesting. All right, so next time you have to do a pound sign, Octothorpe. How are you reading so bad? You're new to the channel, Sock on Parade. I don't know how I read this, but this is how I read. It's so funny because I talk for a living, but I can't read. Octothorpe. Dude, I bet you've never heard of that word before. I bet you have never heard of that word before. The password must include at least one octothorpe. I did not think that was a pound signal. There you go. There you go.
Octothorpe.
That's a hell of a word. Amidst pronouns are octothorpe. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay, good stuff, guys. I'll see you again for the market close. We'll look at Robinhood's numbers. We'll look at Alex Karp's interview on CNBC. So please make sure you're here for the market close. Twitter is in the chat. I'll probably be posting it on Twitter as well. And we'll keep going from there. Daily Palantir will be out in a few hours, and then we'll do market close at 3:45. Yeah, we should call it mispronunciation of the day instead of word of the day. All right. Thank you, everybody. Fun stuff. I'll see you at 3:45. Bye, everyone. See you in a bit.